Yeah, the card is working, but for some reason, well,
Oh, it gets better.
Please call 0203.
So it's the wrong number anyway.
Wrong number anyway.
Brilliant. So yeah, the card is valid and it should work, but it's not working. And there's like a whole line of chargers here. It's just one of those little things that EV drivers have to contend with at the moment. Not talking about EVs today, talking about, you can't hear me at all. Hang on a minute. Interesting. So this is what I wanted to talk about today, the climate. It's like a little village atmosphere.
It is.
We should get some tea, coffee.
Indeed, yeah.
I have a nasty feeling the cups are not going to be recyclable. I kind of think this is the main problem right here. I mean, when I say this is the problem, I don't mean that having coffee is a problem per se, or that having it in a cup that then has to be disposed of is a problem. The problem is that the cup is not recyclable. Does that mean that the lid is recyclable?
6 times.
How would they know how many times it's been recycled once it's been recycled?
And also...
Are you sure it's not like a category of plastic?
Oh, no, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right.
You want to join me on this side? We think we know what the 6 is about, but as far as I understand, most places don't recycle these tops. What needs to happen is the government needs to just make all this lot illegal and have a viable alternative. And if they do that across the whole country with, 6 months notice, the factories will pop up to make cups out of recyclable stuff. Of course they will. I mean, we're not talking about something that's physically impossible, are we? It's just the lack of will. It's a difficult one. I'm not somebody who thinks that we need to change the way we behave massively. Technology should be able to harness some or a greater percentage of the enormous amount of power that comes down from the sun every day. And that's what we should run things on.
Interestingly, there was more solar panels from the protesters at Marble Arch than there was on both of our roofs put together.
Well, yeah, that's a good point, actually. I want solar panels on my roof. Apparently it's going to spoil the view for somebody. I don't know. I'm probably not going to spoil the view for anyone, but just in case it spoils the view for somebody, we're going to stop that, which is really annoying because I could have put 8 kilowatts of solar panels pointing south at just the right angle for this latitude, and it would have been enough to power the car, the house, and probably leave me some left over. But no, because it spoils the view. That's what I think anyway. Right, I'm going to finish my bad for the environment coffee and then we'll go for a ride through Hyde Park, I think. I can't believe how many police officers there are here. Check this out. Push! This one is push! In progress that I've missed?
I don't think they're expecting trouble from 2 old boys on skateboards, do you?
Well, they could be. We are tearaways.
You got told off.
Yes.
I shouted at you.
Somebody shouted at me, push! As in, I'm being lazy, not pushing. There's no battery on that.
Hands up all those who are lazy.
Somebody just was walking by, I think a tourist, and she was saying, why are there so many police? And we said about the climate protest, and that's why the police were all around there and everything. Mark here said, well, did you say something like?
They asked what it was all about, what was going on, and I just said it's a peaceful protest to do with climate change. They had a small child in a pushchair, and I just said so that when he grows up, he's got a world to live in, to which they're all in favour.
Yeah, funnily enough. And that, I think, is the reason why the police are not being a bit more heavy-handed, or it's part of the reason why they're not being too heavy-handed with the protesters, because ultimately I think there is quite a lot of support for them. I wouldn't say it was universal or anything, but there is quite a lot. place because they're aimed at that building back there. It's the electric car ABC rule.
Absolutely.
Hey Afeez, how's it going?
How you doing? This is my electric unicycle. This is the baby. The baby.
Oh, it's the small one, is it?
The smaller one.
So now we've been joined by Afeez. I'm going to completely change the topic that I was going to talk about today, because I was going to talk about climate change, which everyone knows about. And honestly, I mean, I'm quite pleased you got these protesters and they're highlighting the issue, because somebody had to. But now I think it's time to talk about Tesla's autonomous driving reveal. Both Afeez and Mark have actually watched it already. I haven't. I'm also losing them because I'm talking into a camera rather than concentrating on going at a decent speed. Okay. So we're here today with Afeez and obviously Mark. I haven't seen this autonomous event. What was it about then?
Tesla's autonomous vision of the future is called the Robo taxi. Presumably, if you have a Tesla like yourself, you can put your Tesla on the network and your car can drive around and pick up strangers, and they can then pay.
It doesn't have autopilot.
Oh, sorry, mate. So essentially, your Tesla can make money for you by going out there and picking up people that want to, you know, go from one place to one place, and then come back home and then pick you up and so on and so forth.
Typically Elon,
Yeah.
polished,
Yes.
well delivered, really good vision of the future. Let's just hope that it is all gonna come true and not in Tesla time.
Will it look?
But they were saying end of 2020.
Yeah, well,
First Robo taxi end of 2020. So
that sounds very Elon time to me.
How feasible is this? You know, in terms of being used as part of you know, everyday usage, part of the community. How will an autonomous car fit into everyday life? I mean, we're in the center of London and we're in Chelsea here. Will I trust my car to go out there and, you know, potentially and adequately navigate all the different obstacles around London? I don't know. I think in a controlled environment, yes. Somewhere like California, where obviously it's, you know, they've got wider roads.
I wouldn't call that a controlled environment.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Well, it depends. I mean, from what we've seen in terms of what they've shown as part of the demonstration, it seems like the road was pretty free. The car didn't really get into any issues in terms of navigating its way around or stopping or going or whatever. So it looks good in theory, but how would that be used in, let's say, New York, for example? Yeah.
Honestly, it sounds like exactly the sort of thing that Elon Musk has said with Model S and X, and obviously now Model 3, in that eventually you'll be able to buy one of these cars, send it out to work for you, and earn you some money, and then you can also use it to drive around when you want. But here's the thing that I think what I think is going on under the surface. So you mentioned that, you know, it was obviously a route that they've driven down many times before, because the last thing they need is for it to go wrong on a live webcast.
Yes.
But I would imagine it's a bit like autopilot. You could climb into the back of the car and go to sleep and have it drive you halfway to Scotland. And you'd probably survive the experience. But that's not good enough to let that go out on the road.
No.
But what you've got to ask yourself is, how much of an advantage does Tesla have over the other car manufacturers? But that advantage is hidden by the fact that Tesla are not yet ready to allow the cars to just drive themselves. Because that's the key difference, right? You've got these, you know, Google cars and various other people. I think Uber, you know, had them for a while. These self-driving cars where they're trying to sort of get the technology up to scratch. But those are specialist cars that people are putting on the road and in the hopes of moving forwards. Whereas for Tesla, they've already got those cars on the road.
I see what you
They
mean.
need to throw the switch. And what I think may well happen is, I think this is going to be a very similar thing between SpaceX and Tesla. I think the progress that SpaceX has made with full reusability is hidden by the fact that at the moment they're just at the beginning of that process. I think they are actually going to be able to make Starship work. You know, the orbital second class that can come back and land on its tail. I think they can do that.
Yeah.
And if they can, they will be so far ahead of the competition. It'll be like clubbing baby seals.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same with autonomous driving, right?
Clubbing baby seals.
It is. It's just.
I wasn't going to say anything like
just too easy. Well, you know, we've been talking about.
Didn't they say that at the autonomous event?
But it's true though. I think, you know, give it 2-3 years, they've ironed the bugs out, they go seek regulatory approval, or even they don't bother doing that, and they just turn it on and they say, all right, keep your hands on the wheels, but the car will drive itself.
For the moment, I'm a little bit, you know, I think they're not quite there yet. But the reason why he's doing this is to obviously save more lives, because we believe that most of the accidents on the road is down to human error.
I promise you, autopilot has already saved many, many lives.
There you go. So
I think the stats are something like 40% less likely to have an accident on the motorway if you're on autopilot. Well, when you look at the number of miles people do, the number of people doing those miles, and then you apply 40%, off the top of my head, you're probably saving a few hundred lives.
There you go. Yeah.
Which isn't bad going for a feature that's not even really, it's not fully there.
Yeah.
You can see how when it would be, it'll be a total game changer.
Absolutely.
And I mean, hopefully, it'll make cities work a lot better as well. You know, get rid of the drivers, everyone shares cars, because a lot of the problem is, you know, people want to have their own car, even in a city.
I would buy the full autonomous, but only for personal use. Again, the only thing that's stopping me from being 100% on board with this idea is that I will have to put my precious Tesla out there for somebody else to be in there, and some lunatic on the road driving his or her car manually that might just hit my car or something. So for me to use it for myself, yes, it's a no-brainer. I'll go for full autonomous. You've got full autonomous.
I've got full autonomous.
Full autonomous, yeah. So you're definitely looking forward to it.
I am, yeah.
Is your car? Does your car have the full autonomous?
I've got AP2. I put full autonomous on it last year when it was high priced.
Yeah.
But the reason I did it is because I knew by doing it then, one, it would cap the price. Although it was high, it's only ever going to get higher. It's only ever going to get more. Also, it guaranteed me a hardware upgrade on the. You know, to hardware 3. Okay, there's I think it's cameras and computer. It's not the MCU. I don't think.
It's not the top one, isn't it? Yeah.
Sorry, not the what?
Not the MCU. It's just the driving computer and the cameras that will get upgraded.
Right.
So would you put your car on a Tesla network? I guess that's the point. I mean,
I would need to know more details about how the Tesla network is going to operate. I don't think it's just going to be open to any Tom, Dick or Harry to just jump in your car.
I personally would not, because I know I would get into the car and find some idiot has mashed bubblegum into the back seat fabric, and it can't be got out for love nor money. And I didn't notice it straight away, so I don't know exactly who did it, or I can't prove who did it. There's a lot of risk around that. I think where it does make a lot of sense is for, you know, Uber. And these people.
You buy an entry Model 3, you could make money on that quite easily. When? It's when. It was interesting seeing the I don't know whether it was a mock-up, I assume it was a mock-up, must have been, of the Model 3 with no steering wheel. And you can imagine people just sat there in the front with no wheel, no pedals.
I have seen videos of the Chevy Bolt with no steering wheel on there. That is full autonomous. So that's already, I mean, Chevy's already doing that.
That had specialist hardware on it though, right? So it's not like an ordinary Bolt.
It's not.
That's what's unique about Tesla, is their cars are, or they will be when they've got AP3 hardware in there, they should be basically ready for it. You know, they should have the sensors they need, the processing power they need. The only bit missing is refinement of the software, because clearly the software will do a passable job. I mean, my guess is that if I took that Tesla demonstration vehicle and just tried to have it drive me somewhere in America on the kind of roads it used to, I think it would just do it. I don't think there would be a problem. I think...
You mean now?
Yeah.
Currently?
Yeah.
Model S negotiator 6 speed restriction, where they have, you know, the narrowing of the roads, the deliberate narrowing of the roads that we have in the UK. How is it going to cope with that?
Well, it's a computer, so it'll probably just go smack bang down the middle without worrying about it.
Bounce off the curbs. They're only alloys anyway.
Our computers are quite good at precision. What they tend to struggle with is when an environment becomes fluid and a deeper understanding of what's going on is helpful. So for example, and that's also where AI can help, but it takes time to train it. So if you've got a bunch of cars parked by the side of the road and I see a boy on a pavement bouncing a ball and the ball gets away from him, and I can tell from what's going on, there's a decent chance he may come from between those cars following the ball without looking straight into my path. Now, an AI can do that, but it is very, very difficult to program for those corner cases. Most of the time, it'll actually need something to be in front of it for it to know that it needs to take action. Now, luckily, it will take that action very quickly and very precisely.
A lot quicker than a human.
But that's still not... no, because I started braking 2-3 seconds before the Tesla even knew it had to start braking. And that's where intelligence comes in, you know? And that's the bit which I think will take time. But I think they'll get there if they, and I think they've probably come most of the way already. You know, from what it sounds like Elon Musk is saying, he must have a relatively high level of confidence because he's been at this game for years now.
But you know? Elon has said for so many times that he's going to do something, I don't know, next 15 months to 2 years, and it usually takes about twice as much. I'm still not convinced that by the end of 2020 that the system will be smart enough to be able to obviously negate the situation, which is you can see someone from the corner of your eyes that you know, little boy just, you know, let the ball on the road. You can immediately tell that, well, if that ball is coming behind that car, then I should be braking. All that intelligence needs to go into the AI, and that takes, I'll probably say, even years.
One of the things I was going to say about Elon time, I think basically what it boils down to is, have you noticed that with SpaceX, the target dates are better than Tesla? In that, he's basically, what I'm trying to say is, I think the more you know about a subject, the more you realise you don't know anything. When it comes to rockets, Elon Musk knows about rockets. I mean, he actually knows about rockets more than he knows about running a space launch business, because he doesn't actually run that. Gwen Shotwell does. He just designs the rockets. Now, when it comes to AI, I'm sure he has a passing understanding of what's going on, but I'm equally sure he doesn't sit there bashing out line after line after line of code. And so, for him to say, oh yeah, this is going to be easy, they can do this, it'll be delivered in a year's time, I just don't think he understood the depth of the problem. Now, because he's been at it for a good few years now, and they've been banging on with basically the same technology, the same core concept. They've not added LiDAR and a bunch of extra sensors. It's basically just ultrasound for up close, cameras for further away, radar as backup. And my feeling is that by this point in time, he ought to be getting more accurate. Not 2020, but early 2021.
I'll go as far.
That's where I'd say.
I'll probably say 2025. Honestly, this is just coming because, you know, coming from a QA background, I work with a lot of developers, and developers are usually very optimistic. But when you start obviously testing the code, you find a lot of edge cases that have not really been thought of. Can you imagine this technology working in somewhere like in, as I said, New York? Until Tesla can show the car or the technology in such environment, that will convince me. Right now, it's an awesome piece of kit. It's an awesome achievement to date, but it still needs another 5 more years.
There you go, folks. Afeez says 5 more years. Elon Musk thinks it'll be a bit shorter. I'm somewhere in the middle. Mark, what do you reckon?
5 to 7 years.
I'm hopeful. I'll give him all the credit. I hope he delivers on his word. I hope we'll see something next year. That would be lovely. It really would. And it certainly would mean that I've not bought myself a unicorn.
Well, unicorns are all the rage now. Do you remember? Yeah. I think it's time to get some pizza. What do you reckon, guys?
Let's get some
awesome.
You know what I should have said in that, right? It reminds me of when you're filling up the battery in an electric car. The first maybe 0 to 20%, it's a bit slow, and then 20 to 80% is pretty quick, and then the last 20%, just to get it just right, that takes a longer time. And I think that's what Elon might find with actually perfecting the Robo taxi. Just the last bit, all those little small edge cases that you don't think of, that just creep up at you. That's why I think we'll take an additional 5 years until 2020.
I like to think they're not trying to discreetly program all the corner cases, because if they are, they're failing. They're definitely, it's not going to work.
No.
Nuh-uh. They need to design something that can think for itself, at least a little bit.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Time is priceless.
Time is great.
I mean, honestly, I told you I was in a 3-hour meeting and I'm thinking about meeting you guys up today. And I'm thinking, what are they doing right now?
Having fun.
Having fun. I'm like, and I'm here in this meeting.
We were thinking of you.
No, you were not.
Already. We're losing the light, so I'm going to say thank you to Mark and Afeez, who you can probably see over there. Yeah, your contributions are much appreciated, and I'm going to say goodbye for the day. I hope you've enjoyed today's vlog post. If you have, remember to like it, share it, subscribe if you haven't already, follow me on Instagram and Twitter if you don't already, and I will see you in the next episode of the vlog. Bye! One quick point before we get any further.
Yeah.
You're a little bit further than me. You're a lot further than me. So we need to up the volume.
A little bit so
as it goes.
Yeah, exactly.
So you shout,
and
you half shout, and I'll just, oh no, I've got to talk loud because I've still got to be above the road.
Yeah.
This will make a good outtake.